Well, I don't know if he's underrated in the NBA people's eyes. He certainly is one of the great centers for the last few years. And sure, when you compare him to Russell or Chamberlain or Thurman possibly, he might be behind them. But offensively, he's certainly ahead of them, as far as our game is concerned.
Throughout my time of learning about the history of the NBA, there has always been one common fact that has stuck with their image of dominance as a sport. It's a league full of and dominated by giants. Prior to the 2010s decade, that fact rang true ever since the beginning of the league's existence. And it was evident in the decade of the 60s, with big-name stars who were the faces of the league that dominated that big man position. Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Willis Reed, Nate Thurman, Bob Pettit, Jerry Lucas. But what if I was to tell you that there was a player who also played the same position as those names? A player who was just as skilled, strong, and more importantly, just as dominant as those big names. But yet there is a highly likely possibility or chance that if I was to say his name to you, 99% of you guys will be looking clueless, scratching your heads, asking, who? Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, meet the great Walter Jones Bellamy, simply known as Walt Bellamy. And trust and believe, at his peak, there was nothing the man could not do compared to his peers on the court, and went to war on a nightly basis with the greatest ever that the position had to offer. At his size, his talents and abilities were outstanding and immeasurable, as teams had to game plan for him daily. At 6'11", 225 pounds, built like a football giant, he could operate beautifully in the post, triple threat position, mid-range, and despite his size and stature, he was light as a feather on his feet, as he was quick and agile, could run the floor, and alongside Nate Thurman, could be viewed as a pioneer for the slashing big man, as his ability to drive to the basket and finish was pure. He had a nice patent, soft shooting touch, excellent recipient in the pick and roll situation. He was athletic, as based on the things that I have learned and the few highlights available, he basically dunked anything and everything whenever he seen daylight at, near, or around the basket. Add on, he's an elite rebounder, a supreme interior defender, and good at starting up the breaks and transitions with outlet passing. He was one of the legendary bigs, not in just his era, but in history of the game. He was strong, durable, and a scoring machine with high production that could contribute on any team and get positive results. He was a presence that teams had to focus on. This was evident ever since he first stepped into the league in '61. As for the newly expansion Chicago Packers, now known as the Washington Wizards, he put up one of the greatest /dominant rookie seasons ever, averaging 32 and 19 boards. His 32 is the second highest scoring average in history for a rookie, right behind Wilt Chamberlain, and his 19 boards is the third highest rebound average, right behind Wilt and Bill Russell. Well, would you look at that? He's an elite class with two of the greatest from the decade, who are the two of the greatest centers ever. And if that does not give you a sense of how great he was, then just stop watching and click off. As the Packers/Zephyrs relocate from Chicago to Baltimore, becoming the Bullets, Walt continued to put up legendary statistics, as from 61 to 66, he averaged 27 and 17, leading the new franchise to their first ever playoff berth in 65. In the beginning of the 66 season, he was packaged to the Knickerbockers, creating a formidable front court interior tandem with another great big man of that decade and in history, Willis Reed, averaging a solid 19 and 13. He will go on to have some solid years with Detroit and Atlanta before retiring in 75 as a member of the Jazz. After all the great facts that I have given so far, we ask, why have voters left him off the list? He has a great case. As I stated earlier, there is a likely chance that the vast majority does not know who Walt Bellamy is and how legendary he was in his playing days. I say voters did not vote him as due to circumstances out of his control. He is not viewed as the legendary great big that he should be with his peers because he is barely talked about. He is rarely or not at all mentioned when it comes to talented great players/bigs. And I can understand given the circumstances. The NBA in the 1960s was way totally different. Media was shallow, there was only 9 to 14 teams in the decade, and there was not certain policies/conditions put in place to help the players. He is overshadowed by the success of the contemporaries who were big stars at that time, and unfortunately for him, they all played the center position. And it's not his fault. During the time where free agency was not in existence and money was frugal, he was constantly moved around to weak teams that had no chance to contend for a championship. So he's labeled as not a winner. The best chance he had to win a championship was with the Knicks, and he was traded before their dynasty in the 70s happened. He does not have much accolades to his name, but when you're going against Russell and Chamberlain every night, what could he do? Add on, the weak teams were either in a small market or at their beginning stages, so again, no media attention, and this is the 60s. Along with the fact he has no controversy to his name, it makes a perfect recipe for a great big to get overlooked, underappreciated, and be unknown to most in the basketball world and history. But don't disrespect. I said it plenty of times. He was a talented and dominant big who in his prime rivaled the greatest bigs to ever grace the hardwood on a constant basis. And when I say constant, I mean it. Due to weird scheduling at that time, as he was traded from the Knicks to the Pistons, he played an NBA record of 88 games, being a prime example that the best ability is availability. With there only being a few teams in the league, he's battling these bigs more oftentimes than he expected. Don't believe me? Take a look at this graphic. And he held his own, as it speaks to his career scoring of over 20K points amassed in his 14-year career, facing mostly them great bigs. He's a 4-time All-Star. Statistically, he is up there with the elite class of elites. It's just unfortunate that he had no chance to contend for a championship, as facing these legends on the big stage would have done wonders for his place in greatness. But with that being said, is Mr. Bellamy a top 75 player of all time?
Come here, I want to show you something.